Samantha decided to go out with her friends for some drinks. Now, Samantha normally spent a lot of her time studying, even on the weekends, but since she was about a month away from graduation, she decided she could cut loose for that weekend. So she, along with her friends, head out to this downtown area called 5 Points. Samantha and her friends hop from bar to bar, they're having a great time, and then around 2 a.m., the group found themselves in a bar called Bird Dog, and while they were there, because it was so crowded, the group of friends got separated. Now, initially, the friends were trying to reconnect with each other through texts and phone calls, and kind of in the middle of all that, Samantha decided that she was just too tired and didn't really feel like staying out any longer, and so she texted her friends and let them know that she was going to head back to her room. So Samantha leaves the Bird Dog bar on her own, she hops in an Uber, and she starts driving back towards her campus. That following morning, they realized Samantha was not in her room, and so they called her, she didn't pick up, they started asking around to other friends who might know where she was, but no one did. And so pretty quickly, Samantha's friends were very, very worried about her. By 1:30 p.m., they called the police and reported her missing. At the same time that Samantha was reported missing, there were these two men who were in their mid-20s that were located 70 miles to the east. They were out in this forest and they were hunting for turkeys. Earlier that day, these two men, whose names were Anders and Ryan, they had had no luck actually finding these birds. And so by the afternoon, they had split up and were kind of combing this forest on their own to see if they would have more luck solo. Ryan, with his binoculars, was scanning out across this field that butted up against the tree line of the forest, and then Anders, he actually had walked into that forest. And so Anders is just kind of walking in that direction, and as he's walking, something catches his eye off to the left behind some trees. It was pretty far away, but he instinctively turned and looked, and he couldn't really tell what it was, and so he decided he would go get a better look. And when he got a full look, he stopped where he was, he yelled for Ryan, and as Ryan is running into the forest to see what's going on, Anders is pulling his phone out and calling the police. When the police finally show up, they find Anders and Ryan, and they're very shaken up, and so the police pull up to them, they speak to them and get directions of how to get to what they saw inside of the forest, and then the police officers walk into the forest, they follow the directions, and before long, they're looking down at Samantha. 14 hours before her body was discovered, Samantha left the Bird Dog bar and walked out front where there's lots of other students, and she walked to this corner of this road right in front of her, and she hailed an Uber. And then the Uber car pulls up, she hops inside, and then the car backs up and drives away. Except that was not an Uber car. That was a car driven by a 24-year-old named Nathaniel Rowland, who was not an Uber driver. He was a guy who had been driving around 5 Points all night, presumably to try to trick people into getting into his vehicle, believing it was an Uber. And finally, his plan had worked. She thought it was her car. She climbed in without question. And then once she was inside, she couldn't get out again because the doors were child locked. Now, initially, Samantha wouldn't have noticed this. She just sat in the back seat. The car backed up, it started driving, except it didn't drive towards her campus. And the drive from this bar to the campus was only a couple of minutes long. And so even if she wasn't really paying attention, she would have recognized fairly quickly they were going the wrong way. Now, we don't know what actually happened inside that car in terms of how Samantha actually handled this realization that he was taking her the wrong way. All we know is that Nathaniel drove Samantha to some isolated area, most likely 70 miles to the east, near that forested area where her body was found. And then once he parked wherever he was, Nathaniel pulled out a knife and then leapt into the back seat of his car where Samantha was trapped. Within hours of dumping her body in the forest, Nathaniel was posting these normal posts on Facebook of him in front of his car and regular status updates, and he was having very normal interactions with his family and his friends, as if he was completely unaffected by this horrible crime he had just committed. Nathaniel was arrested within 24 hours of the discovery of Samantha's body. While he never offered any motive for the crime, it's believed he simply decided that night he was going to go kill someone. Here are the final images of Samantha as she climbs into Nathaniel's car. Nathaniel was ultimately convicted of her murder and was sentenced to life in prison. Just know that I really appreciate your support, and until next time, that's going to do it. See ya.